know I won game one, and I know in Necros players they're always going to choose for the opponent to go first. Even I do it myself. Like I make you make your opponent go first. It's a chance they don't draw a Jew, a chance they'll brick, a chance that things will just not go their way because they went first and they have one less card. So when I go first, I put in Share Ride, and basically what it does for the Clown Necros deck, it allows me to have you go summon. If your first thing that you do is not discard Brionic and search Valk, well, discard Brionic to see if I have Share Ride. If you start your turn out, right, and I have a back row, and you start your turn out and you go like summon Manju or summon Senju, but you had a Brionic, that's a misplay because if I have Share Ride, now you're forced to stop with just a Jew on the field, and you don't have a graveyard, so you can't even Valk, and I could actually kill you. If you start your turn off by discarding Brionic and seeing what I do, if you discard Brionic, and I don't flip my back row, you can assume that it's something not Share Ride. And we'll get into more discussion about this later, but you can assume that it's not Share Ride, and then you don't have to search Valk. And then if you summon the Jew after that, at least you have a graveyard, so that way, even if I Share Ride on your Jew search, so say I didn't Share Ride on the Brionic, I let you search that off, which is what I actually would do. I will let you search Brionic because there's no point to Share Ride it. You'll just get Valk and pass. And then you go summon Manju after that, and I go Share Ride the Jew. Now you can crash your Jew into my Jew if I have one, clear your field, and then you have a Valk in your hand, and then you're just golden. And I only got one draw off of it. So like, there's a whole lot of playing around like the mind games of Share Ride and how to search correctly and the order to play your cards in. And a lot of people just kind of don't realize that like Share Ride can really put you in a bad position if you don't play around it at all, or if you don't know what you're really doing. I mean, even discard if you already have a Valkyrie in your hand, the correct play would be to discard Colossalus first, to search a Necros ritual spell to see what I do, and if I don't Share Ride you there, you're like, okay, maybe it's safer to summon the Manju. But to summon a Jew immediately as your first line of play is always going to be incorrect, because if I Share Ride the Jew, you don't have any setup. You just have a 1400 monster on the field. You don't have a graveyard, so I can't trick you, but I can actually just kill you, especially playing the clouds. You can actually just kill people very easily.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can just die. You can die through Maxi now because of the clowns. Like, Masquerade doesn't really care about Maxi. So, like, you can't even assume that you're safe. The only card that I think 100% guarantees that you live is Artifact Lancia, and that's, like, my absolute favorite Necros side deck card now. And I realized it, like, this weekend more than any other weekend. But, yeah, that's, like, Share Ride is great, only because it makes your opponent stop in aqua position, and it gives you one card. They usually end their turn, and if they end their turn without searching a Valk, like, it makes it that much easier for you to kill them, so...
Yeah. I can see the theory behind that. It's very similar to the idea of just it's also about when you use it, not so much when you have it.
Right.
Because same as in Dragon Ruler format, like you don't want to maxi when they're activating Redox's effect to summon itself, because then they're just going to drop Redox in defense mode and you're not going to be able to Crimson Blade them and they're going to survive.
Right.
But you don't want to give them that safe stopping point. It's kind of when you force them to go all in or stop and die.
Exactly, and I like putting people in bad positions. And as long as you don't, I mean, if you play every card better than your opponent, obviously you'll have a higher win rate. And so some people I'll go discard Brionic and they'll shotgun Share Ride, and I just kind of like on the inside I kind of laugh and just like say, okay, well, I'm just gonna search Valkyrie and pass, and then that's the end of that. And then you get the people who are like me, who if I have a Share Ride set and I went first and you went discard Brionic as your first line of play, I'm going to let that search go through. And then if you summon a Manju after that, I'll be more inclined to Share Ride that, because then you have a graveyard and a field. And if I don't have a Jew on my field, you can't even clear that Jew without special summoning monsters and doing other stuff. And then we're just talking about a whole different like ball game at that point, when you start you see the Share Ride and you start summoning monsters into it and trying to clear your field and not search too many times, and you're just like trying to play a crazy game of Yu-Gi-Oh at that point.
So the stream chat wants me to ask you, what's your opinion about mistaken arrest, and why didn't you choose to side that this past weekend?
I don't have much experience with mistaken arrest, to be perfectly honest. I know that here's what I do not like about it. Mistaken arrest is a card that stops your opponent from searching on their turn. So in theory, if you opened up, like, if they make you go first and you had mistaken arrest instead of Share Ride, you mistaken arrest their first search, they don't get it, so they're down a card. You're also down a card. It takes a card from both players, and then they can't search the whole turn. The problem that I have with it, though, is that when it comes back to you, you also can't search. And so I don't know what you're really going to do on your next turn without searching, unless you really set yourself up completely perfectly, so that on your next turn you have like everything already ready for like a Trishula play or something. But if you don't, your next turn you're just as frozen. And then what I really hate about it, and this is what I always say, what I really hate about mistaken arrest and the Necros mirror match type of thing, is that your opponent is going to be the first person to search again. So you play it and they can't search on their turn when you activated it. But then it comes back to you can't search, and then they get the first search again. So I don't like the fact that they're going to be the first person to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, and that's why I don't like it in Necros Mirror Match. And I think the only way if I was to play that card would be, yeah, I mean there's a way to search it. That's kind of cool, but other than that, I don't really see myself playing Mistaken Arrest in the Mirror Match. I just don't like it. I think Mistake. If I was to play anything, it'd probably just be Mistake. At least that way no one's searching for the rest of the game until this card leaves the field, as opposed to you don't get to search on your turn, but I don't get to search on my turn either, and then you get the first search when we can both play Yu-Gi-Oh game. Like you get the right away in a way.
Yeah. So kind of touching on that, I don't know if you saw any of the deck lists from YCS Rimini, but
I didn't really follow any of the coverage. I don't even know what won that event.
Clown Necros did win,
But nice.
but it was actually a really interesting build. I should have gotten that picture because I kind of want to discuss that. But one of the side deck choices that stood out for me from the winner of YCS Rimini is he was side decking 3 deck lockdown, which is kind of that interesting aspect because of the fact that unlike Mistaken Arrest, it is you who gets to get the search again once deck lockdown
Right.
blows itself up. So
And
what are your thoughts on that?
that is literally all the difference. My testing partner right now is Tommy Rowe, who I played in the finals at Syracuse,
Hmm.
and he's been talking about siding deck lockdown a lot because it's really good against Cosmos, and it's really good against Necros because you can actually get you get the right away. You get the first search when the game goes back to normal. So when the game goes back to normal, you kill them because you got the first search. It's kind of my fear of playing Mistaken Arrest is that they get the first search, so theoretically they should be killing me because I couldn't search a Valk maybe, or I couldn't defend myself properly because I mistaken arrested you, and then you got the first search and you did whatever you wanted. So in that regard, I see Deck Lockdown as just being a strictly better version of that card in the Necros Mirror match specifically, and against Cosmos. But against like BA has like they can play Mistaken Arrest. They don't really need to search. Like they can do an end phase, like search for Scarm and then activate the Mistaken Arrest and pass to you, and you kind of like. If I can't get a Valk against BA, you know how hard that deck hits you already. Like they hit you so
Right.
hard in one turn that like it works for them. They don't care about getting. They don't care that you're going to get the first search because by the time you get the search again, your life points are so low that now they can just like bar you to death. They can nightmare shark you to death. Just put you in a very awkward situation because once you start having to count your life points as like a real like I need to preserve my life points. Your whole game plan kind of changed. You can't really play the game as freely as you once were because you're so low. And I don't like being in that position. And BA puts you in that position so quickly and so easily. 5,000 is like a regular BA attack, like 5,000.
Yep.
So.
That said, did BA have an impact on your decision to play 2 Dweller?
Yes, that is so like as I was filling out my deck list the morning of, the only thing I couldn't decide on was what my 15th side deck card, extra deck card would be. Because I remember Chris LeBlanc was saying how Amaterasu was, he never really used it and he just wouldn't play it again. And so I took that into consideration. I thought about what it really did, and I was thinking about like, okay, so in the mirror match, if I ever had a chance to summon Amaterasu, I'd probably just be going for game that turn and summoning Masquerade. So that should never really happen where I'm grinding it out like that. And in other matchups, if I can summon Masquerade or Amaterasu, I'll probably just make other rank fours that hurt the other decks, the other random decks. So I was like, I agree, just on the premise of what he said and just thinking about it without even having to play a single game with it. And I came to the conclusion that I often struggle against BA. Like I really, really have a hard time beating that deck, and I think it's not just me. It's probably every Necros player. It's some games you will blow them out, and it will seem like the deck is a joke. But then most of the games, the BA player is even slightly competent. They can just stall the game out so long that you will just lose your resources. You will just go through all of your Necros ritual spells, and they will still be playing like with between Traveler and Fire Lake and Dante and Seer. Like the recursion is just ridiculous. Like they never can actually run out.
Yep.
You can run out, but they never can. And if you look at the finals of Toronto, game one, Gabe actually like grinded Mark out of all of his resources. I mean, it was to a point where he was setting Jews. Like that's how bad it got because over time, like you just run out. Like if you don't kill me, if you don't Trish and Brionic and Dweller and kill me, you just lose. So basically, while I was filling out my deck list, I was like, okay, well, I have to play a 15th card, and I have to get in the line soon. Otherwise, I'm going to get like a match loss or something. So I just was like, I'm just going to add a second Dweller because Dweller's not awful in a mirror match, and he's just really really good against BA. And the first one always gets killed. I noticed that, like, and I feel like Dweller's kind of like the key to beating BA. Like, it's like even if they beat it that turn, their Dante mills were trash. and their whole like game plan was trash. So if they aren't playing Traveler, which most people weren't in Konami format, they weren't playing Traveler until I think now people will realize that Traveler is good in both formats. But in Konami format, people didn't think Traveler was good, and the only way to really stop Dweller is Traveler. So if you're playing as a standard BA player at Toronto, and you used Dweller on them, you will probably just beat them because it actually does take away all their cards. Whereas they can just go in phase, bring everything back with Traveler and win. So I think the second Dweller. My theory was basically that the first Dweller always dies easily to a trap or to just Dante beating it over, and then the second Dweller will just actually stick, and then it will take away all their cards, and you'll just win.
Yep, I can agree with that logic. So the stream wants me to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
The first that we've seen is the first that we've seen is Retaliating Sea. What's your thoughts on that card? Notice the absence of it in your deck in any way, shape, or form. Um,
So I really wanted to side that card. I can't even explain to you how good I thought it was. I really thought the card was like one of the best cards I ever read. I mean, but when it first came out and I saw it, I read it over and over again. I was like, wow, this kind of destroys Infernoids. This it does destroy Shaddolls. It like is the most devastating. But I didn't really make my deck to beat Shaddolls. I didn't really care too much about that deck, just because of Unicorn. And it's kind of like Necros was built with Shaddolls in mind. Like the way Konami created the deck seems like they built it purposely to beat that deck. So I don't think that you have to really do too much to beat Shaddolls as is. So I didn't really side Retaliating Sea for that. But I did like it, and the idea in a mirror match of having a card that it helps you to grind against them. It takes away the ritual spell they played. If they use Short, the Short gets banished. And if they use the Valk, and if they tribute anything, those cards also get banished. So they're just like losing cards crazily while that card is on the field. And when they kill it, you switch out a maxi. So there's no like proper way to deal with it. And you probably realistically could not trish me after I Retaliating Sea you. So even if I had a graveyard and a Retaliating Sea's on the field and I have a hand, so I have the whole setup for you to trish me, if you use your Short and I Retaliating Sea, that whole play, your Short is now banished. So you can't Necros Mirror and banish it to summon Trishula. So you have to like find a different way to summon Trishula. There's no realistic way to do that. So I thought the card is like basically what I'm saying is I thought the card was really good. Apparently, at Toronto, it was being ruled that you could not use Retaliating Sea on Reasoning. I'm not sure about Monster Key, but they said you couldn't use it on Reasoning. And I don't know if that is exactly how it should work or whatnot, but that would be one of the main reasons why I actually did play it because I think that like I don't like Infernoids. I hate playing against that deck. It's not necessarily that I think it's a good deck. It's just that it's one of those scary matchups that you can lose to. And so I would have decided Retaliating Sea and been really sad that I couldn't even use it on a matchup. One of the matches that I actually wanted it for, and I actually ended up playing an Infernoid deck in the Swiss rounds, and I saw that there was one in top 32 as well. So I mean, people might want to actually just pay attention to the fact that that deck exists. But Retaliating Sea is a good card. I didn't think that I needed to side it that particular weekend. I waited to see what everyone else did, and I saw Tyree use it against Chris LeBlanc, and he beat him with it. But
it's interesting that you mentioned that Retaliating Sea wasn't able to be used on Reasoning. The head judge was Zach Bishop, who I have complete confidence in his rulings knowledge. So I am gonna get with him and ask him what the decision behind that was.
right.
I can see it going both ways for
Yeah,
sure.
it's one of those things like you can solemn judgment macrocosmos. I mean, you can solemn warning. You can solemn warning a macrocosmos because it has an effect on it that can special summon a monster.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I know reasoning is like it has a chance to summon a monster. Like it won't necessarily guarantee do it every time, but neither will macrocosmos. So I don't really know. Like I'm a judge in Yu-Gi-Oh too, but
Hmm.
I'm not really deeply into all of the straight up theory of how judging and how certain cards become ruled and why card A and card B have the similar effects, but they're ruled completely different thing. Like I'm not into the whole like getting over that because a lot of times it's just because Konami said so. So
Yep.
whatever they rule is what they rule, and that's how I play. But if you can't use it on Reasoning, and if you can't use it on Monster Gate or whatever the case may be, I think that takes away a lot of its power. Like I really just don't like the card at that point.
I completely I completely agree. And like I said, I completely trust Zach Bishop's
Right.
judgments. So I'll ask him just to clarify for my sake.
Mm.
But if he ruled it that way, he had good reason to do
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
And there's a good chance that that's the correct ruling.
Yeah.
Um,
You know,
But
when I think about it, like retaliating, see, the more I'm thinking, like I'm thinking about it right now, and it keeps seeming amazing to me. It's just that like most hand traps, you draw it too late and it's awful.
yeah, I agree there.
They
Speaking
have
of,
field or anything going on for him. Like it's one of those cards that's just really, really bad. But like if you get it in your opening hand, it's probably just absolutely amazing, especially if your opponent's going first. So like if you're going second and they make any play, like I saw Jeff Jones was playing his last round against the guy who I lost on top 32, who was playing Necros, and Jeff played like a Shaddoll fusion card, and the guy chained Retaliating Seed. And this is turn one. Jeff had to go first, so Jeff already has 5 cards, and he got Retaliating Seed, and then that took away like everything. Like you just lose everything. And I realized like right there, like wow, like well, we already knew it was a blowout against Shaddolls. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things, and I don't like how it could be late against that deck. Like once again, if they have the Water Fusion out, or if they're summoning the Water Fusion, they don't care that you Retaliating Seed them. Like okay, I go. I go Shadow Fusion. I'm about to summon a Water Fusion on you, game three, and you go Retaliating Sea. Like that's fine. Like I don't get my one Shadow effect, but I
I
banish my Gigabyte and I summon a Water Fusion, and now you have to deal with that.
I actually think that's a big problem because the fact that retaliating sees a level 4, so if they're going that first turn water fusion and
Right.
you retaliating see them, all you have to do is summon a Jew and that water fusion doesn't mean anything anymore,
Right.
and they're minus like 4.
Yeah. If things if you have I mean if you have the very easy play of making a rank four and just like completely winning the game from that, then yes. Like if things go out and that's not even too much to ask for. Like obviously you can't attack on your first turn, so you can't really kill the Retaliating Sea.
Right.
But what was I going to say? The Shaddoll players play a lot of cards that are anti Necros. So even having like if they have a El Shaddoll fusion, they can just make it again and that kind of thing. But realistically, Retaliating Seed, like I said, it's a blowout against that deck. It always will be a blowout. But if it's mid game and they make a Water Fusion and you Retaliating Sea and they can attack it, they're just going to attack it and you get a max
Yeah.
E and then at that point you're in that really really bad position. So only when you're going first basically is Retaliating Sea like against the Water Fusion really good. After that, I mean if they just attack it, you kind of
I think the water fusion is also another good argument for playing the clown engine because it just gives you that quick free rank 4 to out the water
absolutely.
fusion.
And that's one of the things I liked about it too is that if someone summoned the Water Fusion on me, I could just summon Hat Trick or summon a Jew and there you go. I'm out of it unless disaster strikes. And disaster is simply just them having an El Shaddai fusion because they could probably just make it like when you use Castell or 101 or whatever you do to it, they could just chain it and summon it again, and it's just kind of like oh god. So, but yeah, I mean that brings me kind of to my next thing. I sided the hands because of the Water Fusion, and because of just in general like a lot of decks can't deal with the hands anymore. They're kind of forgotten and so they have like that element of surprise, like oh god, that's a hand, and I wasn't expecting that anyone was playing hands anymore. I got that idea from Nick Ma, so shout out to Nick Ma for that. But yeah, they're really good again. I feel like they're good against Cosmos. Like it makes Farm Girl really awkward. They're good against the Water Fusion. They're good against Shaddolls in general. Actually, like dealing with Shikanaga, you can just pop Shikanaga really easily, which is usually one of your problems. So like if you have a unicorn in the field and they have a guy in attack mode, you just kind of crash and pop Shek.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool. Um, yeah, the out Vanity Fire Hand can out Vanity's Fiend. Spell Cancel can be outed by that. Yeah, I just think they're really good. I think the hands are really good.
I completely agree. The hands are one of those things that they go full circle. It's
Mhm.
they're really good when people aren't expecting them. Then people expect them, they start playing around them, and
Yep.
then they disappear, and then no one's expecting them again. And oh
Yeah,
look, they're good again.
I love cards like that. Cards that go in a cycle. They go in a cycle, and you have to kind of ride the wave and know when to put them back in. Like, all right, it's time for the hands again. All right, now it's time for Denko again. All right, now it's time for Decree and Galaxy Cyclone again. All right, it's time for Typhoon again. Like you kind of just have to know like what the cycles are of Yu-Gi-Oh because they're always happening. Like every event, the cycle changes a little bit, and if you're behind, like if you start playing. Like let's say there was a better deck than Clown Necros right now, and you just pick up Clown Necros and you go to the next event and try to play it, and then you lose because the next best thing is not that anymore. Like it's kind of like you're a step behind. So you kind of have to stay like ahead of the curve, or you have to know like when things are changing, when the tides are changing.
Yep. The next thing that the stream wanted me to ask you also stems from the first place deck of YCS Rimini. They want your opinion on Trick Clown, and they're asking that because the first place deck of YCS Rimini was Clown Necros, as I stated before, but their Clown count was 3 damage juggler, 2 hat tricker. The mentality being that while Trick Clown is really good in and of itself against a lot of decks, it's bad in the mirror match because you don't want to keep leaving a card on field for Trish. So unless you're going for that Masquerade OTK, it's really bad. And it takes your normal summon, which is something you don't want to waste when you have the Jews that you need to summon.
Right, and another thing is that you don't really want to use it for. You don't want to really use your cycle to tribute a Trick Clown and summon Unicorn because if you do that and they max you, you're in an awkward position where like you special summon twice and give them 2 cards of maxi, or you just completely get rid of the Trick Clown, in which case you kind of went minus on your exchange there to summon the Unicorn. So, I kind of concur because I actually had a weird top 32 situation happen to me where I drew Trick Clown and Damage Juggler, and I just wished it was Hat Tricker instead of Trick Clown. And if I could go back and redo my deck, I would take a page out of Christian George's and whoever else was responsible for making the clown deck with the mathematicians in it, because they played 1 Hat Tricker, 1 Trick Clown, and then 2 Damage Jugglers. And instead of playing any maxis at all, they played mathematicians and Glow Bulb. So like their deck was basically made so that it could go like Herald of Arclight, which is really good because you can't actually kill someone through a Herald of Arclight, which Christian was talking to me about. And I realized that if you think about it in your head, like there's really no way for you to reasonably kill someone through a Herald of Arclight like that turn. Like I'm pretty much guaranteed a turn if that's on the field. And also I can just go for game winner on the field. Like I can attack through Valk, I can attack through Damage Juggler, I can do all the things that Masquerade can do. And when I do it, I can also get any card I want from my deck, which is kind of crazy. So if I could go back, I would definitely take my clown count down myself because I realized that Trick Clown wasn't that good. But he's good against Rogue. But like you don't ever really play a tournament specifically to beat Rogue. You always want to play towards what you expect to play in a top cut. So and Trick Clown's not that good in against Necros. So I definitely would go down. I sided out a lot. I sided out the second Trick Clown pretty much every single round, and I sided out 1 Hat Tricker almost every round. Even though I think Hat Tricker, strangely enough, is really really insane. Like I actually surprised. I thought he was the worst one before the Clown deck became a thing. Like just reading them, I was like, oh, this one's okay, and then come to find out, he's like in Necros, he's like the best one. It's kind of weird. So,
Yep. I actually head judged the regional in Miami this same weekend of YCS Toronto, and one of the things that I saw the utility for of the Damage Juggler was someone was playing the Chicken Race FTK with Magical Explosion, and they were actually pretty consistent. I mean, they were X1 going into round 8.
wow.
And they beat Necros. The poor Necros player was playing Clown Necros, and his next card was Damage Juggler, and it would have just completely won him the game.
Yeah, that's the reason why I actually can't. I couldn't play a burn deck right now because it seems like burn got some help in this pack with the balance of judgment or whatever it's called, like scales of judgment. That card that you draw a bunch of cards after you pretty much play all of your cards, you get to just draw a bunch more for your opponent's surplus. And while they got help, like burn decks got help, they also got hurt really bad because the Clown engine is so strong and people are playing it, and Damage Juggler literally just Damage Juggler and Hat Tricker actually just completely stop you. Like if I just summoned Hat Tricker, I can attack into any, like you have Dimensional Wall or Magic Cylinder, those cards become like negate attacks, like bad negate attacks. Um, so like Hat Tricker just absorbs damage, Damage Juggler absorbs damage, like negates the damage, and he kills the card that tried to do the damage. So like if you even tried to cowboy me for game, I can discard it and kill your cowboy, which is kind of crazy. So I just think that like burn, while it may be viable in some ways, just also got killed in the same pack that it got better, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. Plus, I mean, there's just a lot of things against burn decks right now.
Right.
But the Chicken Race FTK deck is one of those decks that people were fearing might be consistent in the TCG. I don't think that there was I don't think that there was any big fear of it from the better players.
Right.
But there was a large group of people asking how to play around that deck and just not wanting to lose to that deck. Because it can be pretty frustrating. I mean, I watched some of the good players in my area just lose to that deck because they weren't prepared for it.
Right. And here's the thing, if I may interject, at a YCS, a 10 round tournament, or 11, or even 12, but at a 10 round tournament, you your deck will be found out if you're doing well. Like if you're sitting at the top tables, people start to talk. And I feel like any kind of deck like that, those gimmicky decks, once people realize like, oh, that guy right there is playing, that guy right there is playing some kind of chicken game deck or some kind of magical explosion deck, then you have the problem of people saying, oh, I want a die roll, I'm going first. And when I go first, I'm going to ramp into, Valk and try to draw into my damage jugglers or just summon Hat Tricker and just pass. Like things like that. You run into those weird problems like that where you kind of auto lose. Like if I just summoned Trapeze Magician, the Perform Mage rank 4, like
Yep.
because people play that card. Like that card's played and that card's played in every deck. So like if you just sped that out on turn one and said go, like what can you really do to that? And that's kind of like the problem that I have with any kind of deck like that. Once people start talking about it, like if you're doing well, it kind of, you're going to be talked about, you're going to be featured, you're going to cause some buzz around the YCS, and then people are going to say, yeah, the guy in the blue shirt who has, the Chikorita plushie is actually playing, he's playing some trash chicken game deck, and all you have to do against it is just go first and summon a hat trick and you win.
Shout out to Calvin Zahan and his Chikorito plushie.
Shout out to Calvin Tahan. He's one of my frenemies. We have like a little. It's not really a beef. It's like a Drake and Meek Mill beef where I'm Drake and he's Meek Mill. But,
He just came out as not the best in the world.
yeah,
I was a
he
little
came out.
disappointed.
Yep, he came out as Bay. He came out the closet. He's bad at Yu-Gi-Oh. So I was very happy that he came out today to the world. Chris LeBlanc came out like a month ago, and now you have Calvin coming out as Bay, and I just think it's really cool. People are coming out as scrubs. So not Chris LeBlanc. Chris LeBlanc came out as being just good at Yu-Gi-Oh. But
Yeah. Chris LeBlanc is another player who just from judging the ARGs, I've been able to see just how good he really is. And
yes,
there's because a lot of the good players, either they're overshadowed by the famous players,
mm,
or they're just not well known at all. Nick Ma is a perfect example of that. I mean,
right.
Nick Ma is not a name I heard until I started going to these events, and he's an amazing player.
Yes, he's
Um,
really good, and he's the thing about those players because like Sean McCabe is another one. They have double-digit tops. They each have an ARG win, and they're humble. And that's what kind of like they don't really like to do a lot of interviews. They don't like to do, you don't really see them post on Facebook. Like when the last time you see Sean McKay post a status? Never. Nick Ma doesn't really post statuses about anything Yu-Gi-Oh related. So you don't really see them active in the Yu-Gi-Oh social media where like a player like me or Jarrell or Jeff Jones, we're like really prominent on social media. So like our faces are more out there, and I write articles, so you're always seeing me in some way or another. So I keep my name out there. But then you have Sean McCabe, who's in my opinion, like one of the best players to ever touch the game, and one of the best deck builders too. Just on a simple fact that like he developed the concept for Gravekeepers. You have players like that who are really humble and they're really really good, and people really don't know them as well as they might know someone else who might not even be as good as them, but just has a louder name than them.
yep. I did want to say that you mentioned, how you write articles. I'm sure pretty much everyone knows this at this point. But for those of you who know this and don't take the time to read Frazier's articles, you really should. There's a lot of useful information in there. I took away from one of the articles you wrote, trusting in your side deck,
Right,
and going back to the point that you mentioned about not building your deck for rogue, but building
right,
it for what you expect the best deck to be,
right,
and letting your side deck deal with all the rogue.
right.
That's that article, coupled with a couple of things that I saw Hoban write. I would not have been able to get my top without reading those.
Right.
And there that information is extremely useful. More so than people would realize. So I strongly urge that if you don't already, you read Frazier's articles as well as Hoban's articles, and any other article writers that take their time to put out the information and share their experience, because
Right.
they've basically done the footwork for you, where they've gone ahead and and they're laying their experience out for you.
Mhm. And I I really do enjoy writing articles. I think everybody kind of understands that. Like, I actually enjoy writing in general. And articles, you might, like I always say, you might not learn something from every single article you read, but if you learn something from every five or every 10, like that makes you, that's something that you did learn makes you better than the next person. And then if you read 50 articles and you learned 10 things or you learned 25 things, like that's just like that's 25 things that somebody else in front of you might not know that might win you the game. So you really have to take that in consideration. And I read articles. I've been reading articles since I was younger. I read feature matches. I read articles. I did everything that had to do with coverage. I was a super Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I was fully committed to the competitive scene, and I did everything I had to do to make sure that I understood the game and card interactions and how to become better. And yeah, I mean, if you look at my side deck right now, I'm going back to the point you made about trusting in your side deck because that's one of my favorite articles that I wrote. Um, my side deck has two Lancias and two Share Rides in it. Everything else in my side deck is for Rogue. Like I'm not like I only saw it in two Share Rides and two Lances for the mirror match, and everything else is literally for every deck that is not Nekroz. Dark Hole Rageki for Infernoids and for a Ritual Beast and for Shaddolls. Hands for Shaddolls and BA and Cleafords and MSTs for everybody that's not Nekroz and Decrees for everybody that's not Nekroz except Stellar Knights. And like I don't side Decree against Stellar Knights anymore because I hate when they go Trevere and you have Decree and you actually just you don't get a turn to really set it again because they just keep Trevering you. So I realized it's kind of awful against that deck. And I was talked over with Pat. We both kind of just agreed like it just sucks. But like every card in my side deck is for Rogue except the four mirror match cards.
Yeah, and I think that article definitely conveyed that point, and your side deck definitely shows it. And I think more than anything, it makes me really happy to see a deck like this because it shows that you're not just putting that information for the sake of putting that information out there. You actually follow it. You
Oh,
actually believe. You actually know your mantra to be true. You actually follow it, and you get results clearly. I mean, you just topped a YCS again. This is top number. What
over.
top is this?
It's weird. This is a 19th top, and I topped Toronto 2011. Then I didn't top 2012. Then I topped 2013. Then I didn't top 2014. Then I topped 2015. So it's like a every other year kind of thing. So hopefully I can break this little cycle that I have going on. And next year when I go to Toronto, I can actually just top that one too because I would like to not go and not top and have this constant back and forth with Toronto. So
That would be awesome.
yep.
But so I think that we've taken enough of your time. We really appreciate everything that you've done giving us this interview. Congratulations again on your top.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome to stick around and commentate on the games that we're going to play if you want, but you're no way obligated to.
All right,
So,
I was writing an article for my tournament report. I haven't written a tournament report in a very long time, so I actually wanted to do a tournament report on Toronto, just in all the things that happened on the weekend because there was like a festival and there was funnel cake and there was always good things happening and then the tournament itself. So I'm going to continue that article, get that article out hopefully as fast as possible. Hopefully I can have it done by tomorrow and then have it posted by Wednesday or Thursday so that people can read that and see what happened during that my experience and how I savaged Calvin Tahan 2-0 to guarantee my spot in top 32 because it was round 9, so whoever won was guaranteed. And I put him in the bubble bracket where he eventually lost and didn't top. So
well, sounds good. Have fun writing your article.
yep.
And once again, thank you for your time and congratulations on your top.
Thanks. See ya. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.